Good afternoon. Mhm. It's only a few hours since my most recent video. A few hours passed. I took a nice nap, something that I've learned to appreciate and enjoy. And then I sat for an hour, hour and a half of meditation. And I decided that since I had this pretty much prepared, that I'd go ahead and do it now. And I talked about how to prepare. I talked about my message was very succinct. Prepare the vehicle with no hints, no suggestions of just what that must be. And so I turned to my meditation practice. I turned to sitting because this is really the only tool that I've ever had that would go towards any kind of preparation whatsoever. You can prepare for a test, but I never really liked that. I never spent much time the night before studying. I learned as the class went along. I always went to class. I learned and so when the came time for no cramming. I didn't believe in cramming. Cramming didn't work for me. I would review casually, get a good sleep, have a good breakfast, go to the test prepared. So this is the past. This is how I prepared. But now this is different. So when I went to immediately went to my meditation practice, and then I started reflecting back on the last few months and how that, if anything, my progress has been very gentle, incline, it's kind of nice. But I reached the point where I thought my meditative practice, I could pretty much, and it's true, I could pretty much stay in a meditative state 24/7. And I somehow felt that that was enough. I didn't sit for my formal meditation, which, by the way, while we're talking about meditation, it's been my experience that 1 hour is a pretty good goal. 20 minutes working up to an hour. And after an hour is only for those occasions when you just find yourself. Yesterday I spent 4 or 5 hours in meditation, but I didn't set out to do it. I just found myself comfortable, found myself to extend it. But anyway, what I was saying is I was practicing what I call waking meditation, from the moment I wake until I sleep, but without the formal sitting. And I use inspirational music. Other people prefer silence, but for me, I'm all about what works for me. And what works for me is some meditation music. And I have a large collection. But anyway, in this process that I've been sharing, that I've been going through since it was prompted around April, but it wasn't put into practice until almost the end of May. So it's May, June, July, approaching the 3 months. Pretty extended period for me to be in the throes of one kind of. It seems like it has a commonality. It seems like it's a theme. But one of the things I did is go back to formally sitting. Again, I'm pretty relaxed about my practice compared to the tradition of Zen Renzai that I came out of with a real discipline. And I mentioned that my posture has never been good. I can still hear my mother. It's probably the only thing I can really hear. Stand up straight. I can still hear that. It was well intended, but it is what it is. And then I think of my lovely wife, Colleen. She practices Hatha yoga very, I wanted to say religiously, religiously in the secular sense of the word. But Hatha yoga, the yoga of asanas, postures. And sometimes I go out to watch her when she's having a practice. And this Hatha yoga, you need a mat. And it's good to have yoga pants. My wife doesn't have yoga pants, but she's thought about it. Anyway, I say this facetiously, but this is a great practice. And she's asked me many times to join her. But I watch her, even in her meditation, in her meditation practice, her back is ramrod straight. She's able to comfortably sit on a cushion in a lotus or half lotus position with this straight. She would have been a much better practitioner of Rinzai Zen. The Roshi would have been much happier with her than he ever was with me. But she's also flexible. And she encourages me because I'm not flexible. I've never had much flexibility. My body is pretty rigid. So she's encouraged me, and I've tried even the most basic postures. The simplest things just can't be done. Now I like to pride myself on having a flexible mind, but I don't know if that's a rationalization or just seeking out some kind of compensation. Because what I found is that you got a gift somewhere else, and maybe you have to work harder on its opposite. But this ability and then the flexibility, I just admire her so much, and I watch her, even though she's always encouraging me to join in. Recently, I've been dealing with issues about balance. And my balance, I'm talking about my physical balance, my inner ear, some suffering of vertigo, although maybe that's past me now. But I just went climbing in the mountains and going to a stream and just declining not a very demanding hillside, rocky dirt path. And I noticed for the first time that, well, it wasn't that I noticed for the first time, I was to verbalize, to capture in words what I was feeling. My body simply was no longer doing what is my mind told it to do. It's got a mind of its own now. So anyway, that's probably my obstacle with the Hatha yoga, the yoga of asanas. In the Western world, this is when we say yoga, this is what we think of. But in the true sense of the word, yoga simply means union. And I've talked about it before because I've been very captivated by the four types of yoga, and I've revisited the 4 types of yoga and how to practice and what the gift is from practicing this particular yoga. And each yoga Uh, I don't think you can force yourself and say, I want this yoga. I think that the yoga finds you. It's based on who you are. But let me start with the karma yoga. Karma yoga is the path of selfless action. It's those that like to be active. They want to do anything, but the key lies within its selflessness. And the reward, I'm still looking for the gift that you're given from the practice of this karma yoga is compassion. Karuna, they call it compassion. So those of you that like to be active, and I'm talking about physical, in the physical sense now, like to move, like to do things. Remember that you have to do things, and you do things for others anonymously, and you do things selflessly, giving of yourself with no expectations, and you're rewarded with, you attain compassion. And then there's one, when my meditation, when the music I was listening to was thinking of bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is a celebratory. Through love, through dance, through motion, through joy, through the complete devotion to a guru, usually. Is love, universal love and kindness. And for bhakti yoga practitioner, chanting, mantras, dance, aesthetic, joyful, unencumbered movement, and as many things of the ultimate love and devotion for your guru or your teacher. And this unselfish love, karma yoga was unselfish action. Now we're talking about unselfish love, to love without expectation. And your rewards are love and kindness. This is the fruit of the practice of this particular yoga. And then there's a Raja yoga. Raja yoga has been called the royal yoga. Raja yoga is a little bit of bits and pieces. It has some of the bhakti yoga, it has some of the karmic yoga, but it's based on a simpler, even though it's called the royal, it's based on pureness, just as we would expect from our ruler. A ruler that would be spoken of from the Tao Te Ching is purity, lineage, purity, the celebration of lineage, where you came from, and purity, wisdom, inseparably bound with compassion. To serve because it's your destiny to serve without an expectation. Serve the other. That's royalty's job, isn't it? And the reward they get. Remember, the royalty is kind of distant, right? It's not, by definition, it's separate from the masses. But their gift is the bliss of the undisturbed. They're at one, they're at peace. They're fulfilling their function in life is the key here. Their function is to rule, is to lead wisely, compassionately. And this reward is the bliss, called the bliss of the undisturbed. As long as they're doing their job the way that they're meant to do, they're left alone, not disturbed. And then there's what they call probably jhana yoga, probably the most difficult. They say it's the most difficult. But this is the yoga of the scholar, of the thinker, of the seeker of wisdom. And upeksha in Hindi. The reward is equanimity. And this is the path that found me, and this is the gift I was given, equanimity. But I'm just reviewing these, and upon reviewing, I don't see anything about clarity. The latest thing that we're talking about. And then I saw a connection. Since yoga means union, the true meaning of yoga, the practice of yoga is union. And I've just recently shared when sitting on the side of the river, separate myself from the river of life, I was able to do somehow, and how at that time, the witness that I always experienced outside of the self, united with the self. Well, that's yoga. Union, yoga in its pure sense. Not hatha yoga with asanas of postures and physical exercise, and the other yogas were spiritual inclination, one that suited you. Of those four, one would probably be most suitable. And learning which yoga is most suitable is another story. It was pretty obvious to me. I always do things the hard way anyway. So the jhana yoga, the yoga of knowledge, the yoga of wisdom, and the gift of equanimity. But again, reviewing these four yogas, and they're supposed to be inclusive and exclusive. And here I found this thing that I was searching. None of the 4 yoga paths were concerned about clarity, or even seemed to offer up, or it wasn't in the construct, it wasn't in the formula. And I thought, this is just recent thinking. I thought, this not without a sense of irony, is it? That the thing I spent my practice, the most focused and most time of my practice, was clarity, and only to discover that it was another yoga in its purest sense. It was the union of previously what I thought was the separate witness, when all the time this distance was only my lack. It only reflected my lack of understanding. The witness just slid in where it always was and always belonged. It was only in my mind that I had some need. Maybe it was to look up to something, like we look up to God. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was. It just was. So here, I had a yoga experience in the truest sense of the word. And then I came to understand, through this union lies the key to unlock clarity. And as I sit here, we're in that, hopefully, I can't say for certain till it occurs, but I feel like I'm caught in the throes. I'm working on unlocking. So preparing the vessel was the first step I was given. And then I started thinking about, I talked about no words but my own. And so I was busy thinking about words. And then I thought of something I'd said earlier, something I experienced earlier, that went hand in hand with this concern of the actions that words lead to others. And it was questions. And in this process, I said before, I ran out of questions. I was no longer a man of questions. This was before my abiding enlightening, when I was still with my teacher, and he'd give me his precious time and give me opportunities to ask questions, and I would say, I have no questions, which only would make him smile. I didn't feel the need. I had no questions, and I didn't feel the need that I need to make up one, because my teacher was asking me, giving me an opportunity that not many people were fortunate enough to have. And only to see that I exhausted being a man of many questions. I'd come to the end of the line for questions. And then recently, here it is again. I think if you listen to some of the previous, the last 3 or 4 within them, you hear me questioning a lot. So this idea of words and the actions, and the questions. So just as I understood words, my own words were the only words that were necessary for me any longer, my questions, the ones I've asked recently, are all directed to me, inward. They're my questions to myself. Just as the words I'm sharing with you are my words. And I had an aha moment. Aha. A man of no questions from directed to others. A man of his own words, to the exclusion of the words of others. Now I have to put a caveat. To function in the world, the physical world that we find ourselves in, we have to have some kind of at least superficial conversation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about words that were directly aimed towards my spiritual growth, my spiritual state. The use of others' words were no longer necessary. This reflected a maturity on my part where I didn't need validation. I didn't need to hear that somebody else shared the same experience. My experience are beyond doubt. And I'm content and satisfied with that. So now words. I was puzzled a bit. I'm going to continue to use words because I got more videos to do. I'm maybe teaching to do in person. Who knows? That remains to be seen. I'll do it if it comes to me. I will not seek it. I will not put any energy into trying to make it so. So here's the commonality. No questions for others. No need from words, even the wisest words from others. But here. And what, at the same time, these are all the pieces fitting together. I got the method, I got the teaching, the focus of today's teaching. 27 minutes in again. And it's rich internal life. I need to, this is the preparing, this is prepare the vehicle. Talked about physical, now we're talking about spiritual. To enjoy, to revel, to focus, to spend time devoted to my rich internal life, my internal dialogue. Now that the witness is with me, we'll still dialogue, but the words don't have to travel so far. The words are simply in this new, rich, internal life. So, I'm in a time of celebration. I might add, no closer to unlocking what clarity will mean for me if the gift of clarity, not if, because it's definitely how it will change my life. How will I be different? But first, I have to earn it. And again, through preparing my vehicle on all soul, mind, emotion, physical levels. And the next step, and I have to say at this point, I don't have any more steps after this. It hasn't been gifted to me. I don't know when they'll come, and that's why I wanted to share it today. Because I don't know how long there'll be between the next teaching when I have seen or understand or have incorporated the necessary, have completed all the necessary steps to unlocking. I'm finding keys, but I'm finding the keys only open one lock at a time. I don't know how many locks there are, but and I don't know how much closer I am to unlocking, quite frankly, but that causes me absolutely no concern. I'm patient. I'm relishing being patient. I'm relishing this unfolding. I'm just simply enjoying. And this is the point of today's enjoyment in my rich internal life. To realize that that's more than enough. That would satisfy, that will keep me satisfied, safe, secure, busy. So it came about this appreciation and this focus and this necessary embellish. I have to make my rich internal life richer as part of preparing the vehicle. I came to peace with words and questions. Words and questions from outside does not limit, negate. In fact, it enhances. I'm listening with a sharper ear to these questions, these words. They're part and parcel of my internal life. And the most recent, in my last sitting, I sit right over there, my last sitting meditation before I presented, before I put on another shirt and did all my steps to get ready to make a presentation, that the gift, this rich internal life, leads to a rich eternal life. Again, inside to outside. I will live, I can look forward to a rich eternal life.